Welcome back to Independent Chick. I'm so happy that you're here today. We're talking about an interesting subject today, but right now we are joined with Cher Paulson. She is a pastor at Calvary Temple, and we have Kim Wheeler. You're an independent management, hear me roar boss chick. Can I
like
that work?
Yeah, that works for me.
And then we have our lovely Tia Provici, who is our regular panelist. So you might see some new fresh faces, and we're really excited to have you guys here. Thank you for jumping on board. I know women are like, ugh. But you guys are brave, so it's awesome. So today we are talking about sex or nookie. We're talking about the subject. We're tackling it for the purpose of educating and women empowering themselves through even just saying no. My first question today, we're going to talk about what do you guys think, and I'm just going to throw it out to anybody. What do you think the biggest mistakes are that women make with their sexuality?
I think the hugest mistake that women make with their sexuality is they're not sexy if they don't attract men. Mm-hmm. That's number one. Number two, don't think about sex. Mm-hmm. You have a whole life to build. You have education, you have a career to go through, you have self-fulfillment, you have travel, you have self-improvement. Sex should be on the bottom in the early stages of your life.
I think it's true. I think it's true. For me, it was about men. And then career was sort of second. And then as I started switching it was like, what am I doing? It has to, for me, I'm passionate about my career, but.
It's hard for me to understand that mindset because I have two teenage daughters, and I've raised them to think about what they want to do with their lives, their careers. One daughter is 16, she's never had a boyfriend. The other daughter is 18, and she does have a boyfriend, but she's prepared to move away next fall from her boyfriend to Vancouver to attend school. And her whole life is about, what she wants to do. So when there are young women who, are thinking more about boys than they are about themselves, it's, for me, that's really a huge cringe factor because I think that when I was young, I was like that too, but I always knew what I wanted to do, and it was about becoming more independent and learning your own worth.
I think for me, the question is why? Why do you want to be involved in that, and why do you want to have sex and be with people that way? Is it because you don't feel complete in yourself? Is it because you feel like that other person has to validate you? And in that, I think that we can educate women to know you don't need someone else to complete you. I come from the perspective that a relationship with God completes me. That's where I go to and get my values and self-worth from that. But for anybody, I've heard the saying that women give sex to get love, and men give love to get sex. And so we come from it the opposite way. So we give ourselves hoping that we get this thing that will complete us, but it doesn't.
Totally doesn't.
Yeah, no, it's really true. I felt very lonely working in Asia when I did because I was such a high-powered lady, and men don't like ladies generally that are of power, influence, or managerial status. And I found it was very hard, but then at the end of the day I realized I don't want to date someone that can't keep up because I want to be able to lead the same lifestyle. So I know eventually in my life there'll come to a point where I'll meet men that will see the same values and goals and aspirations that I have in my life.
Do you think it is about power? Because I felt recently empowered because I've taken an abstinence vow, just for my own purposes of being like, I'm taking that control for myself and I'm going to empower it because I can say no. And I feel like very, very passionate about it because I almost feel like it's empowering me, it's making me a stronger person because I don't have somebody controlling in that part of me, which is so personal.
I think that there are definitely men who are threatened by successful women because I have quite a few single female friends who are really smart. They're beautiful, they're funny, they're intelligent, they're all these things that you think, wow, she is a great woman, but they cannot get a date to save their lives, right? And when I was single, I was never asked out on dates either, and it was like, why aren't men asking me out on a date? I think I'm a pretty great chick, right?
Yeah.
But anything,
I'm awesome.
All my other friends aren't being asked out either, and I think it's, that there is that fear of a powerful woman, right?
But also look at the positive side of it. If you're a woman that's independent, I remember for me, I wasn't focused on the sex and finding a guy. I was focused on solidifying my career and building something for myself long term. And then I noticed I'd be getting dates like from doctors and engineers and lawyers and talent agents, you know, like the kind of caliber of man really heightened my expectations because I grew up from parents that worked in a factory, you know? So it really it took me for a huge learning curve.
Oh, wow. Do you think media is really what plays a big part into our younger women sort of raising that level of teen pregnancy, higher levels of teen pregnancy because of how media portrays women?
I don't know.
Is that a tough question? Quiet.
Well, I think on the soap operas, absolutely. It totally encourages that whole women are second and it's so much drama and we all fight with each other. But if we're looking at movements of the world, like for example, Oprah opening an only women's school to empower women, that's going to globally have an impact, right, on generations because it teaches once a woman raises a son and a daughter, so if she has values and she has esteem, she'll bestow that onto her children. And I think that's very, very empowering. But in regards to sex and all that, I think really there's no problem with it if you feel like you have self-worth.
I think that society and the TV media, they portray it very romantic, that life is very romantic, and so we set the bar so high for these girls that life is just all about romance. And really, when you get into a relationship and then get married and then have kids, it's real life. And it's getting up every day and choosing. And so you need to establish the choice in the relationship when you're single to make those good choices for yourself, to protect yourself, because life isn't romantic every day. I mean, it's not candy and roses. My husband's a great guy, but it's not romance every day of the week, you know? And it's real life. And so we don't really portray that properly, I think.
And I think, like, you know, with all the Disney films, right? Like, they're taught from a very young age, right? That this is what's
Prince
expected of you. Like, yeah, right. Someday you're
That was very good.
there will be a man there who will save you. And it's, you know, it's things like that you know, you can watch them with your children, but you have to talk about it and you have to say, you know, that was really great, but
in the end, he'll break your heart. No, just kidding.
and you look at all those, you know, there are all those videos that are online now that are showing what it takes to get model perfection, right? That it's not real, that it is all photoshopped, and it's all smoke and mirrors, and it's hair and makeup, and if you show your daughters those videos and your nieces and your cousins and your friends' children, right? Those things. And you talk to them about what the reality is, then I think it's opening up a conversation where they can then have tools in their arsenal to watch and television and movies and be able to point out, okay, that's not reality.
All right. Well, it's been great chatting with you. Whew, we got through that, and thank you so much for sharing your opinions. We're going to be right back right after this. We've got some great music up in store for you.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Independent Chick, and we are covering Aboriginal Music Week, and right now I'm joined with George Leach. So I'm not sure if you know too much about the show that we are filming right now, but it's called Independent Chick, and it's all about women finding independence. What do you think about that?
I think that's awesome. I think I'm all for it. That's good. I love my mom.
Well, I was going to ask you, who are your role models that you can think of that are really strong, independent women?
Well, definitely my mother is number one. The mother of my babies, you know, is also another big one. So I got some great sisters and a lot of really good, strong aunties in my family who they all love to laugh. They love to just, you know, just be the best that they can be every day. And so that's who I follow. How
did they raise you to be in relationship when it comes to be with with women?
Just to be, to be loving and kind and just learn your manners. I was always told to say, "Pardon me," not like, "Huh." So just little things like that, and I'm learning every day, and like I said, though, I have good role models. The women in my family are really strong, independent women, and so just blessed with that.
So you're up for 4 APCMAs this year. How does that feel?
It's awesome. I mean, it's overwhelming a little bit. I mean, that's great. I mean, I'm really happy. Like I was talking with a friend of mine earlier, and it's like for the awards, it's humbling, but it's for all the people that have helped me get to this point. I mean, nobody gets to a record like this or to this kind of situation without a really strong foundation. And that starts with your family, that starts with, and then your team, your business team, your friends. I got 2 really strong brothers that love me very much and have been really supportive. And the way I look at it, the awards are for all the ones that had to put up with me over the years, because there's a lot of ups and downs in this business, and they were definitely stuck around through the downs, and that's why I'm here.
My understanding is that you don't have a manager and that you do most of that kind of stuff on your own, like an independent musician.
I have an assistant manager now who I've been working with, Dagnais Also, for the last 8 months now, and he's just like, man, he saved my bacon. And like I said, I'm just coming into that strong team feel. Like I got the band that I like and I love playing with them. It's an honor playing with them, and so things are picking up at really good speed. Got a good publicist, Kim, and so yeah, just keep working it.
What do you value most about who you work with?
What do I value? I value just being able to have a coffee with you. That's the biggest. When I was in my younger days, it used to be 50% of it is if I could sit down and have coffee. But now I'm getting a little bit older, and I'm like 75% of it is if I could have coffee with you, and it's just because I love my coffee.
What moment in your musical career would you want to revisit, and what would you do differently?
What would I revisit? Geez, that's a good question. There's so many moments in my career that I've had. I really love the folk festivals. I loved one of my favorites is like Salmon Arm Roots and Blues, and I loved the Winnipeg Folk Festival. It was all about the volunteers. Like the volunteers were right there for you. The folk on the rocks as well. It's just the volunteers, when they make you feel like $1 million. Like if you've been traveling like 1,000,000 miles and you're tired and people help you out. That's one of the things that I really like. The other, what I would like to, what is it? Revisit, redo.
Like, well, what would you change at those moments?
What would I change? Just not a heck of a lot. I mean. So far, like I've been pretty lucky having good people that I work with.
So if you were the Prime Minister of Canada, what would be the first thing that you would change?
The Prime Minister? Oh my gosh, what would I change? I would just make sure that you keep supporting your artists, because the artists are for me it's a platform for the people to say things. And I just think nowadays there's just that platform is getting smaller and smaller with funding cuts. And I think, that's one of the things that makes Canada really strong. I mean, look at all the major artists that come out of Canada. They're worldwide, like probably the top in the world. And it's because Canada supports their artists. And so if I would say anything, I would just don't stop that, because it really makes Canada, puts them on the map.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us here on Independent Check. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Independent Chick. I'm Dana Foster, and thank you so much. We now have our new guest, which is Dr. Reece Malone, sexologist. Now that's the correct title.
That's right.
All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit about sexuality and sexual independence, women taking charge of their sexuality, but there is a difference between sexuality and sex. Can you tell me what the difference is?
Right. So sex is a component of sexuality.
Okay.
So when I talk about sexuality, I talk about our bodies, our attractions, our identities, and everything around us that influences how we relate to ourselves as sexual beings and how we are intimate and sexual with another person.
Okay. I don't know if a lot of people knew that, but it's really good to know. Why do you think it is so uncomfortable for people to talk about sex?
It's really, that's a really, really good question, because we as a culture and society love talking about sex.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, and we love talking about it, about other people's sexual lives. We love talking about what's going on in popular culture. We talk about everything but what's going on with us.
Right.
And when we talk about us, we often talk about it in a negative sense. What we're not doing, the complaints that we have in our relationship, or we're just really, really lost and we don't have the language or the communication to even start.
Where do you start?
That's a good question. So when I talk about sex, when I see clients and patients about sex therapy and they come to me for sex therapy, oftentimes I'll ask them, if they're complaining about sex, what does sex mean to you? And that's when the blank stares are, and most of the time people say, well, it's about the actual kind of baby making kind of thing, or intercourse.
Intimate connection?
Well, that's another question altogether, because one person might say, this is what intimacy means to me, and another person will say, well, this is what intimacy means to me, and they don't have those really mindful discussions about what does intimacy mean for us as a couple.
And would it be different from male to female or partner to partner on that?
It's individual.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily, some people want to, someone would say, well, men are all like this.
Right.
Or women are like this. But I think what's most important in our relationships are what's important to me as an individual, what's important to you as an individual, and what's important to us. And that is a process that I think is really healthy for every relationship, intimate and sexual, that we are, that we engage in.
Is it important for girls to continue to talk to each other about sex, or should they be talking to their partners about it?
I think both.
Yeah.
And I think first and foremost, and just to answer your initial question, is that I think it's important for us to understand what sex and sexuality is. We need to make a much more, or think of sexuality in a more mindful way. What does sexuality mean to us? Outside of, and this is really hard, all the double standard messages that women receive.
Yeah.
One side is sexuality is very private, that it's very personal, that is something to be hidden. But on the other side is sexuality is in our media, it's valued, it's a commodity, and the double standard exists, and so it can be very, very confusing for people to navigate sexuality for themselves. The more we understand our own sexuality, what our desires are, what our hopes are in a relationship, the better we are at communicating what that is. I think oftentimes women kind of they accept what they're given.
Yes.
They settle. And
I was just going to say, everything you're saying, I'm kind of going, wow, I had never thought about it like that, ever. And that's something I should have been doing.
well, I think, and here's we're not receiving the sexuality education that individuals really deserve. And when I talk to teachers and faculties, teacher educators, or those students, I think we need to talk about sexuality not just from the reproductive sense, but the relationships that we form with ourselves and with another person.
True.
How can we form healthy relationships intimately and sexually with another person if we don't know ourselves and our own proclivities and our own thoughts, our own values around it?
There's a lot of emphasis on sexual protection. Is that something that should be continued?
Of course.
Yeah.
However,
Okay.
our schools and some divisions have very strong values to not talk about, not just about protection, but just primarily focus on contraception. It's really clear, and the studies are very, very clear. The less we talk about it, the higher rates of sexually transmitted infections and unplanned pregnancies. The more we talk about it in schools, the lesser the rates are. And that's a very, very clear statistic across the board.
That's what I notice if you're at a clinic, there's just like the bowl of condoms and like really nothing else. Why is that?
Well, I think the good thing about the bowl of condoms is that it normalizes that condom use is a good and healthy thing. I think there needs to be more information such as how to use one, how to put one on, that there are choices for individuals that if it's not comfortable, some people say, I don't like using it because it's uncomfortable, it comes off, it's not pleasurable, and there are actually ways to make condom use sexy and pleasurable and feel just as good as non-condom use.
Okay. So if we're going to just go back to women talking about sex with each other, what sort of topics should be talked about?
I think we need to talk about what's important. I think women need to talk about what are the influences in their lives that have influenced their choices. Some women don't have a lot of choices and are blamed and shamed for the lack of choices and privileges that they might have.
The shaming.
The guilt, the body dysmorphia that women experience, that our culture is training women to value a certain kind of body or a certain kind of identity, rather than really honoring the diversity of sexuality that women have.
It is a really confusing message because you do have that, promiscuous women that are shamed, but then you have the other half where it's supposed to be like Carrie Bradshaw and like you're supposed to take charge of it. Like, which message is it? Which one are you supposed to be?
Right, and that's a good question too. I think it comes down to values. There's a difference between a woman, in my opinion, a woman who is having lots of sex and celebrating her sexuality, whether she's having sex or not, versus a woman who is having a lot of sex because she doesn't have choices, because she's exploited.
Security, though?
Maybe some insecurity, maybe lack of self-worth. So there are two differences there, so I look at the values.
How is that? Since I know that is a problem within women, and a lot of women that I've talked to, it's like they find their worth or they felt that they've had to because of that pressure from their male counterpart or their that they had to be a certain way. Why is that? Is it not to blame people, but is it
I don't
that
blame
pressure
people.
from a man, or is it
Right.
a woman just not taking charge of herself?
I think it's not about blaming a person. I think we need to look at our culture. We need to look at our influences and the choices that we give ourselves and the choices that women allow themselves to make. So I think the more that we are mindful, and women are more mindful about who they are as sexual beings, the more that they can take control in their sexuality and feel more empowered.
All right, there we go. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Dr. Reece Malone. If people want more information, where can they find you?
They could find me on my website, which is www.reecemalone.com.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be right back right after this. All right, we're back here on Independent Chick, and we are talking about sex and everything that the complexities of what comes along with the topic sometimes for women. So we're really this is Holly, and she is the co-owner of Fantasy Boutique, which is in the Exchange. Thank you so much for joining us to answer some of the complicated questions that women might be thinking to themselves but not quite asking yet. Why do you think that women are shy when it comes to talking about sex or openly being able to talk about it with their friends, but when it comes to partners, a little bit more shy?
I think a lot of that has to do with fear of rejection.
Oh, yeah,
fear of
totally.
judgment.
Yeah.
You know, like, because your girlfriends, you've already created that like safe area to be able to say anything. And maybe with a new partner, you haven't.
So true.
Yeah, you haven't gone to that point. Yeah.
All right. What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions about adult stores?
That they're sleazy,
Yeah.
that people are there because their sex life is inadequate. But 99.9% of the time, people are there because they just want to spice things up or they're having fun with sex. And they just want an added extra feature to their bedroom, you know?
You must deal with a lot of women coming into the store shy and kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. How do you make somebody feel comfortable? Why do you feel that they might be a little bit more uncomfortable being in these stores?
Because I think we're a little bit sexually repressed as a society, for sure. And I just talk to everyone like they're my best friend.
Yeah.
That comes into the store, and then all of a sudden they're just telling me everything, right? And they're like, they stop. They're like, I don't know why I'm sharing this. I'm like, go ahead, honey. Just like, let me know.
Did you know that you're going to get into this?
You know, I used to work at Discreet like 10 years ago, and I just kind of fell into ownership of this place.
Yeah.
So it's kind of my dream job.
How can a woman take charge of her sexual independence?
I think every single woman should own a vibrator, and every single woman should.
Okay.
And every woman should masturbate every day.
Okay. Do you think women should talk about their sexuality?
Absolutely.
Yeah, not just within their friendships, but also within their partners?
Yes, absolutely, for sure.
How can they open up that door to discussing it?
How can they do that? I don't know.
See,
like, I just do it. I just do it,
Yeah.
so I don't know how to struggle with that. Maybe have a glass of wine first.
What do you think some of the biggest mistakes that women make when it comes to their sexuality?
Biggest mistakes. Maybe, I don't know, not listening to themselves, not being confident, I think confidence is a huge thing when it comes to sexuality.
Yeah.
And not telling their partner, hey, this is what I like, or why don't we try this, you know?
Yeah. Well, you
Not
seem
being-
very confident to be able to talk about it. How did you find that confidence? Were you always confident about being able to talk about that within your relationships, or even with girlfriends?
Not
did it
so
come
much.
with it being in the
I
industry?
think A, it comes with age. B, I talk about sex with strangers all the time, and I also do a lot of self-care. Like I go to the gym and I make sure I make time for myself to make myself happy and to gain confidence in all facets of life. And then, you know, you're just gonna be confident in sex too.
Thank you so much for watching Independent Chick. We've been talking about that topic. Hopefully you found some information and you can start taking charge of your sexuality.